Good afternoon, my name is Capaldo and it is Wednesday, April 19, 2023. Thank you for joining us. And today I'm going to talk about financial things. I'm not going to talk about them the way very often they're talked about. I mean, there's been enough discussion of tithing and stuff like that. I mean, I think we're looking at new heaven and new earth. We're not looking at a bunch of religions or churches, that organized religion where you tithe or whatever. You pay a pastor. I mean, we're moving away from that as the reality of God and Christ comes to us through our own decisions. Deciding we decide how we're going to do that. We're going to fight the love of God, or we're going to embrace the love of God in Christ. So I don't want to talk about that aspect of money, but I would like to talk about something, maybe I would call it compensation, the way how we are compensated for what we do, and some of the things that are going on in the financial system, and look at it from the standpoint of the producer of a service, of a good or service, the consumer of a good or service, stewardship, negligence, theft, usury, that type of thing. And then I just wanted to relate, something personal, something that happened to me when I got my bank statement, just to let you know, what kind of thing is going on now. And it's not very subtle anymore. So, the thing is, if you're not starting to see some of these things, you really need to step up your discernment. You really have to start looking into some of these things. I mean, and I've made the point, I'll make it one more time, is that 3 years ago, I think maybe we were all caught off guard a little bit, but there's no reason anybody should be caught off guard anymore about what's really going on in the world. Who's running the show for now, though eventually they're defeated, and we'll know that they're defeated, but for now, this small group of people, who are they that are trying to run the world? But anyway, I'm just going to read a little bit from Exodus 21, 33 to 37. Now, these examples I'm not literally trying to use these examples for today, but I think you can see from some of the examples that there are parallels, right? If one man's ox hurts another ox so that he dies, they are to sell the live ox and divide the price. They're also to divide the dead one. Or if it becomes known that the ox was given to violence in past times, and its owner has not kept it pent up, he must surely pay ox for ox, and the dead animal will be his own. If a man steals an ox or a sheep and kills it or sells it, he is to pay 5 oxen for 1 ox, or 4 sheep for 1 sheep. So, in other words, people produce goods and services, and they're entitled to a just recompense for what it is they produce. I'll go on a little bit and read in chapter 22. If a thief found breaking in is struck so that he dies, there is no blood guilt for him. But if the sun has risen, there is blood guilt, and he is to make full restitution. If he has nothing, then he must be sold for his theft. If the item is found in his hand alive, whether ox, donkey, or sheep, he is to pay double. If a man causes a field or vineyard to be eaten by letting his animal loose, and it feeds in another man's field, then he is to make restitution from the best of his own field and the best of his own vineyard. If fire breaks out and spreads among thorns so that stalks of grain, standing grain, or the fields themselves are consumed, then the one who lit the fire must make full restitution. Okay, if a man entrusts his neighbor with money or items for safekeeping, and it is stolen out of the man's house, then when the thief is found, he must pay double. So these are just some examples of general principles when we engage with each other in the marketplace, or the economic world, the financial world. If you want to look at it from the standpoint of a producer of a good or service, obviously things like price gouging and overpricing, these are things that we're not supposed to do. Usury, which is really charging any interest, and you can see the irony of that if you look at this is kind of an Old Testament principle that we're not to charge interest on loans, and you see the bankers and how that happens, and now, and how basically the usury system has become the basis of the debt slavery system. but that going back to the Old Testament, it says you shouldn't do that. I think that I don't think I need to dwell very long on that, and you can see the irony in that, right? So from the standpoint of the producer, the quality of the service and the price of the service, those are things that are very important, and not overcharging for the service. But by the same time, if you look at it from the standpoint of the consumer, there are always people that are trying to get something for nothing. And so that's not fair to the producer, right? So there has to be, one thing that the text says is you don't want the two thumbs on the scale, right? I mean, it has to be a fair exchange. You're producing something that you put a lot of effort into and then dispensing it as a service or a good, depending what it is. And then the consumer is supposed to get quality for whatever the price was. And you can buy, of any product, you can buy high-end, medium, low-end. I mean, there are different choices like that. But there has to be a fair balancing of interests in the transaction of money, financial transactions between the producer and the consumer. In the work that I do, I never ask for money because I've received some, I was able to save money through different jobs that I had, different employers that I had. So I don't ask, but and that's fine. But then there are some people this is their profession. They're professionally skilled and trained for this type of work, and so this kind of providing information and knowledge and wisdom and counseling, this type of thing, it's a consulting service, if you want to put it that way, and that's what they do. So these rules apply, that it should be a certain quality for a certain price, and people should not try to get something for nothing. The something for nothing thing, unless I'm saying, I'm freely giving it to you, it's not what I do for a living, so if you want to give to someone, give to someone around you, help someone around you, rather than give it to me. But if it's a transaction, then it should be fair to everybody. And it goes both ways, just as you don't want to be gouged, by the same token, neither should you expect something for nothing. And the issue of stewardship is very important in any kind of business, in any kind of buyer-sell relationship. And these issues, these examples that have been given in the text here are examples of negligence. If there's some kind of negligence, there has to be a fair settlement worked out between the parties. Theft is not permitted, obviously, that's kind of a no-brainer. And usury is not permitted. That's the taking of interest when somebody gives you a loan. So I think that those are kind of the basic principles in economic transactions or market transactions, or the handling of money, the passing of money. It should be a fair exchange of financial, whatever you want to call it, financial spirit or financial energy, or whatever you want to call it, of finances. And that's really the key, I think, is the fair balance, not putting extra thumbs on the scale. That's the key to the issue of compensation. And so don't let the antichrist spirit rob you of something, rob you of the just compensation that you deserve, or rob you of the extra money that is too much, that you shouldn't be paying out. So it means you have to be discerning in the stewardship of whatever it is that God has given you. God has given a lot to some people, God has given less to other people, but whatever it is that God gives, there's an expected level of stewardship that goes with that, whether you're producing a good or service, or consuming a good or service, or there's some other type of transaction that's going on. And I'm going to read a little bit more from Ephesians, and then I'd like to share with you an example of something that happened to me in a bank statement recently about how the banks are handling your money, how they feel they have the right to handle your money a certain way. And if it's not a harbinger or an omen of things to come, I don't know what is. But anyway, so I'll read a little bit first in Ephesians 4:25-32. Yeah, I guess I'll go to 32. So lay aside lying, and each one of you speak truth with his neighbor. Also very important in economic transactions, for we are members of one another. Be angry, yet do not sin. Do not let the sun go down on your anger, nor give the devil a foothold. The one who steals must steal no longer. Instead, he must work, doing something useful with his own hands, so he may have something to share with the one who has need. And that's a very important point. You know, in my own background, or I don't know how to explain it. So soul background is kind of focused on things of the intellect, but it's also very important to be able to use the heart and use the hands. And it's just, I can give you a funny story about using the hands. You know, I've been trying to get some work done around the house, and I went shopping for some supplies, and I ended up going to 3 different places. And in one of the places, the gentleman who tried to help said, you know, we don't carry that anymore. But this was basically the same answer in 3 different places. You know, it's a supply chain issue, and certain things you can't get anymore, or certain things you could only get online maybe, and it might take you at least 3 weeks or a month, or, you know, whatever it would take. And the gentleman said, who was not young, I mean, he was probably in his, I'd say, his early 60s, and doing this kind of very basic customer service job, and he seemed like he was an experienced, intelligent person. And maybe, I don't know, you can imagine this, you tend to see older people, they have to work to pay the bills, because inflation has gotten so crazy, and the evil management of the economy, or non-management of the economy, has put people to the point of like desperation in a way. You know, they have to make some very serious choices. They have to work at things that normally, once you get to be a certain age, you think you could have slowed down a little bit and not have to do that type of thing. But no, you got to do it, you know, to keep up with the bills. And this gentleman said, he said to me, you have no idea how much of my job description involves telling people what we don't have. And I said, you know, I thought, well, that's really too bad. And he says, yeah, they discontinue things, or they don't make things anymore, or they switch something only to online, or if you want to assemble something, you know, you can find some of the parts but not all of the parts. So who do you go to, and how does that all fit together? And sometimes companies make parts only for their item, and you know, using other parts to replace those parts doesn't work. You know, and of course, if you go back historically, before COVID, you didn't see this type of issue. And now the friend that I was working with, helping me with it, said that now he sees this all the time. You know, this is just one example. You know, I don't mean to be complaining about my own stuff, but I mean, this is just one small example of supply chain issues. Now multiply that by, you know, hundreds and thousands and millions of such incidents, and you can see how there's been this deliberate, voluntary grinding down of the economy, grinding down of the people. And all right, God has won. We know that God wins in the end. At the same time, you know, until that becomes, you know, public and evident, you know, there are hard times. Enough people have to be pushed to the brink, you know, and realize, you know, we need God. That's what we need. You know, we don't need these evil intended people, you know, running everything and then creating all this artificial intelligence that is smarter than us. And then how do you shut it off? If you don't have a godly intent, the artificial intelligence ends up ruling over you. So we have a number of issues like that we're trying to find our way through and navigate. And this, you know, one of them is certainly this economic issue I've been discussing. And so that's just kind of a funny and not funny story about, you know, using your heart and using your hands, in addition to, you know, even if your soul background or soul family is more focused on things of the intellect, you really should have a balanced perspective about, you know, your calling, I guess is the way I would put it. And there was just one more thing I wanted to mention. I wanted to read something of my statement from the bank, or, you know, a letter that the bank sent me. Now, bear in mind, this is about your money, right? This is these things. What I'm going to read to you now. Toronto Dominion Bank, TD Bank. You know, they sent this letter. Important information about your account. Okay. Effective June 1st, 2023, we're making changes to our funds availability policy. Now, they're talking about your money. Don't forget that. Funds availability policy to include the following. Part 3, funds availability policy. Longer delays may apply. That's what the letter is about. Delays in you getting access to your money. Did I say that clearly enough? In some cases, we will not make all the funds that you deposit by check available at the times shown in this policy. What the hell? Whose money is it? I mean, you're entering into what they call a fiduciary relationship with the bank. You're trusting them that if you put your money in, they're going to have it there available for you when you need to draw upon it. And here they're telling you, in some cases, we will not make all the funds that you deposit by check available at the times shown in this policy. Depending on the type of check you deposit, funds may not be available until the second business day after the day of your deposit. The first $225 of your deposit, however, like they're doing you a big favor, will be available no later than the first business day after the day of your deposit. What gives these guys the right to withhold any of your money that you're entrusting them with? You're entrusting them with what is yours, what you earned. Who are they to say, well, we won't give you access to it? I mean, and not only is it outrageous, but it's a sign of what's going on and things to come. And I think you should start taking note of things like this. These are not minor things. This is part of the communication strategy of the cabal, is that you test. How much will people take? This type of thing you shouldn't take. This is telling you they're going to grab more and more and more until people don't have anything. Now, I don't believe that they have succeeded or will succeed, the cabal, but until people are awake, they're going to be pushed to the brink and tested, and this is what God is doing. God is allowing this on purpose, for people to wake up, to become enlightened, to become conscious of what's going on, to accept, to embrace the love of God and Christ, and follow the Holy Spirit, and not put up with garbage. I mean, this is garbage. In addition, funds deposited by check may be delayed for a longer period, under the following circumstances, and there are 5 that are given for the longer delay in access. You deposit checks totaling more than $5,525 within the same business day. Now, I don't know where they got that number, but assuming that you had the good fortune to have that amount of money to deposit, they might keep it more than a day or two. This is what they're telling you. And it's really, they don't know what they're doing, or they don't give a damn. Either way, this is bad news, right? And then there are 3 other reasons. That's one. So 2, 3, and 4 are kind of related, and they're trying to give some. They're trying to give some facade of credibility to the policy by saying that if you're a check bouncer, we have to restrain you somehow. We have to put limitations on you. So you've got one limit that says your money will be withheld longer if we believe a check you deposited will not be paid. Well, how do you know, right? I mean, just if we have a belief that a check deposited will not be paid. Or you redeposit a check that has been returned unpaid. All right, they're trying to make it look like there might be some justification for withholding your money, but still, why was it returned unpaid? I mean, there's no background or no explanation. Okay, so that they have to put something in there that makes a person say, well, okay, yeah, if you're bouncing checks, maybe something has to be done. But it's not the real underlying thing that's going on here. Or 4, you have overdrawn your account repeatedly, or would have overdrawn your account if checks had been honored in the last 6 months. Would have overdrawn. So in other words, they're basing their policy on something hypothetical for which they're giving no specific evidence, and they're just drawing a conclusion, right? All right, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 2, 3, and 4 are kind of related to the idea of, well, what if you pass bad checks, right? That gives us a reason to withhold for more than a day or two. We're going to withhold 1 day anyway. Pardon me. Or the 5th reason why we might go more than a day or two, there is an emergency. Okay, who says what an emergency is? If there is an emergency, such as failure of communications, well, whose failure? What does that even mean? or computer equipment. Well, you know, if it's a failure of the bank's equipment, why is that the customer's fault? But we'll make it your fault, right? If we decide it's an emergency, we'll just keep your money. Note the first $225 will be made available no later than the first business day after the day of your deposit. But what if you deposited $5,000 or this amount, $5,525, assuming, as I say, you have that good fortune? You're going to get $225 of that. Otherwise, according to this provision, there could be an indefinite emergency, length of time for an emergency, failure of communications, what is it, how long, or computer equipment, how long does it take to fix? Why should the customer be penalized in any way? You put all those things together, and this is not a good picture. This is not a good picture. And people should just they should say no. And this is starting in this my bank, Toronto Dominion, effective June 1st, 2023. We will notify you. This is the grand finale. We will notify you if we delay your ability to withdraw funds for any of these reasons. Isn't that nice of them? That we'll let you know when we're not going to give you access to your money. Okay. Just so we're clear, I've said your money half a dozen times, right? If we're not going to make all of the funds from your deposit available on the first business day, we don't have to, we may notify you at the time of your deposit. We will mail you a notice by the day after we receive your deposit, and we will tell you when the funds will be available. Okay, what's the guarantee of that? If you're able to declare an indefinite emergency, how can you tell us when the funds will be available? One of your provisions is that you can declare an emergency. You can declare a failure of communications. You could have a problem with the computer equipment. And then how can you tell me then when the money will be available? You can't. They will generally be available no later than the 7th business day. You have to wait a week for your money in the best circumstance from the date of your deposit. If you will need the funds from a deposit right away, you should ask us when the funds will be available. So you ask, what do they say? Oh yeah, 7 days. What are they going to say? You should ask us. And there's no idea that you could appeal successfully. It's just, you should ask us. We're going to take your money, we're going to keep it, try to roll it over, make more money on your money for a week. But if you ask us, we'll tell you that. We're going to keep it for a week. So anyway, TD. And go to any bank. You're probably going to see something like this. And so anyway, as far as compensation goes, don't let the antichrist spirit steal your compensation, or that you should have, or deprive fair compensation from someone. Don't allow yourself to be ripped off by these people that they just want your money. And then you're a useful idiot until there's no more money, and then you're a useless eater. And that's the way it's all going. So anyway, it's a very uplifting message, right? But God wins in the end. That's what you have to do. You have to come to God, come to Christ. That's what you need to do. You have to let the Holy Spirit guide you. And so I guess it's enough ranting and raving for one message. Thank you for listening. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.